Hello Green Shoppers! Welcome once again to my channel. This is Sir Job and welcome to Sir Job TV. Para sa lahat po ng mga new explorers tsaka newly discovered pa lang po sa akin channel, please don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell for you to be updated with my future videos. So ang pag-uusapan natin sa umagang ito ay tungkol na naman sa buhay ng ating national hero. Specifically in the 19th century kung saan po nabuhay si Dr. Jose Rizal. So ang topic po na pag-uusapan natin sa umagang ito ay tungkol sa the 11 social evils Philippines of Rizal's time. Welcome to my video number 109. Good morning Golden Shoppers! Welcome once again to my channel. Today is April 12, 2021 and today is Monday. Pero patuloy pa rin tayong magbibigay sa inyo ng meaningful discussion in the world of social sciences. So nabanggit ko na po sa inyo kanina na ang pag-uusapan natin sa umagang ito ay 11 social evils. Pero half of that lang po ang i-discuss natin sa umagang ito kasi hindi po siya kayang i-cover ng ating time kung i-discuss natin yung 11 social evils talaga straight. So abangan nyo po ang part 2 niyan bukas sa aking discussion here pa rin sa aking YouTube channel. So it is said that during the time of Rizal, the sinister shadows of Spain's decadence darkened Philippine skies. So meaning to say, ang evil shadows, okay? At saka yung panahon na yun, if we are going to describe, yun ang pag-decline ng morality, no? In the Philippines as far as the implementation of the Spaniards is concerned in the country. The Filipino people agonized beneath the yoke of Spanish misrule. No, yung mga implementations nila sa ating country before, yan ang dapat nating tutukan ngayon as we discuss the 11 social evils. For they were unfortunate victims of the evils of unjust, bigoted. Pag sinabi kong bigoted, unreasonable, and deteriorating colonial power. Highlight natin sa baba, nakasabi dito, deteriorating colonial power because ladies and gentlemen, talking about 19th century kasi patapos na po yung journey ng mga Spaniards in the country. Kasi nga they started 16th century, 17th, 18th, hanggang umabot ng 19th century. So meaning to say, pa-end na po yung kanilang colonization here in the Philippines during those times. So meaning to say, samot-saring mga implementations, no, mga misrule ang nagaganap here in our country, Philippines. So among these are as follows. Okay, yung 11 social evils na pag-uusapan natin sa umagang ito. So number 1, we have instability of colonial administration. Second, corrupt colonial officials. Third, no Philippine representation in the Spanish Cortes. 4, human rights denied to Filipinos. 5, no equality before the law. 6, maladministration of justice. 7, racial discrimination. 8, philocracy. 9, forced labor. 10, haciendas owned by the friars. And number 11, the Guardia Civil. So ang pag-uusapan natin ngayon is number 1 to number 6 lang po na part of the 11 social evils. So ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin ng instability of colonial administration? The political instability in Spain adversely affected Philippine affairs. Bakit nga ba? Because it brought about frequent periodic shifts. So meaning to say, talking about the terms of the governor generals, for example, or the officials in the country, okay, wala po siyang specific na term kung kailan matatapos or kung kailan mag-i-end. So, salitan lang po sila ng salitan, yung mga tinatawag nating mga governor generals or other officials po na ipinapadala dito sa ating bansa coming from the mother Spain. For instance, bigyan ko kayo ng example para mas lalo nating maintindihan. For instance, from 1835 to 1897, the Philippines was ruled by 50 governors general. Okay, klaro po sa inyong narinig, 50 governors general. each serving an average term for only 1 year and 3 months. So kung titingnan natin, if we are going to compute 1835 to 1897, yung period na yan, coverage yan is 62 years to be exact. Okay, sa 62 years na yan, nagkaroon po tayo ng 50 governors general. So imagine nyo po. So ibig sabihin, at one time, from December of 1853 to November of 1854, a period of less than a year, there were 4 governors general na dumating dito sa Pilipinas. So ganun po ang situation before, okay? In 62 years, nagkaroon tayo ng 50 governors general. And there once instance in the Philippines also na nangyari na in less than a year, nagkaroon tayo ng 4 na governors general. So ano kaya ang expectation nito kung ganito ang situation ng ating bansa? The frequent change of colonial officials hampered the political and economic development of the Philippines. Of course, wala talagang magkakaroon ng development sa ating bansa kasi paiba-iba po ang ating governor general in the country. Walang specific term, as I said to you, kung kailan matatapos ang kanilang administration in the country. Kung gusto na nilang umalis kasi nakuha na nila ang kanilang gusto, nakuha na nila ang wealth or whatever it is, they will go. Something like that. So, papalit na naman yung isang governor general from Spain. Hardly had one governor general begun his administration when he was soon replaced by his successor. So naturally, no chief executive, no matter how able and energetic he was, could accomplish much for the colony. Kahit gaano pa kagaling ang Governor General na yan, kahit gaano pa kamotivated ang Governor General na yan, wala siyang magagawang changes in the colony because of the improper guidelines na sinusunod nila when it comes on sino ang magiging next na Governor General at the end of the day. So walang ganong procedure. So that is one of the problems, okay, na naganap noong panahon ni Rizal, specifically in the colonization of the Spaniards in the country. Second na pag-uusapan natin is tungkol sa corrupt colonial officials. Okay, with few exceptions, the colonial officials, which is the Governor General, judges, provincial executives, and other, sent by Spain to the Philippines in the 19th century were a far cry from their able and dedicated predecessors of 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Yung ipinapadala nilang mga governors general at saka other mga officials from Spain is wala po silang kaibahan sa mga pumunta dito noong 16th century, 17th century at saka 18th century. So the same lang po ang implementation ng mga nangyayari sa 19th century. So paulit-ulit pong nangyayari ang mga implementation ng mga Spaniards na ito here sa ating country. So kung i-describe natin ang mga officials na ito from Spain, ito po ang kanilang general description. They were either highly corrupt, okay, incompetent, cruel, or venal. Pag sinabi kong venal, prone to bribery. Nababribe po ang mga leader na ito. Like for example, mayaman sila, so bibigyan lang ng pera, okay, exempted ka na sa kung ano mang mga implementation ng mga Spaniards, for example. Especially pag pinag-usapan na talaga natin ang power of Governor General, doon nyo po talaga mas makikilala that corruption can still be done and super talagang easily magagawa ng isang Governor General kasi napakarami po ng power ng official na yan. Okay, again, balikan natin kung i-describe natin ang mga officials na ito. They were either highly corrupt, incompetent, cruel, or venal, prone to bribery. Okay? So, sino-sino ang mga famous na ito na ino-note natin as Governor General sa period ng 19th century talking about? So, let's start with number 1, Rafael D. Izquierdo. Okay? From 1871 to 1873. Bakit siya naging part? Because merong significant event na nangyari. Can you still recall the martyrs of 1872? Okay? February 17 of 1872, 1872 when the Gomborza was executed in the country. So yun ang nangyari. Okay? The next one is Admiral Jose Malcampo from 1874 to 1877. Same ang kanilang description ha. Yung binasa ko kaninang description ng mga officials from Spain, sila po ito. Third, we have General Fernando Primo de Rivera from 1880 to 1883. Pero bumalik siya from 1897 to 1898. Siya din po ang naging Governor General sa Philippines. The fourth one is General Valeriano Weyler. Okay, from 1888 to 1891 naman po siya. So the last one is General Camilo de Polavieja from 1896 to 1897, which is pasok po doon ang pinaka-significant event, which is the death of our national hero December 30 of 1896. Ito po ang execution ni Rizal. So siya po ang naging Governor General, si General Camilo de Polavieja. So yun po ang description natin sa kanila kanina sa aking binasa sa inyo, and so sila po yung mga governor generals talaga na napakarampan po ng corruptions here in our country. After the loss of Mexico, Guatemala, Chile, Argentina, and other colonies in Latin America, numerous job seekers and penniless Spanish sycophants came to the Philippines where they became judges, provincial executives, army officers, and empleados, or also known as government employees. Bakit ko na-mention kanina ang mga Latin American countries? Because remember sa aking mga discussions sa previous video ko, sinabi ko na sa inyo na ang colony ng Spain is umabot po sa Latin America. Pero yung mga bansang Mexico, Guatemala, Chile, Argentina, ay nauna na po silang lumaya sa kamay ng mga Espanyol. So, nung nagkaroon sila ng kasarinlan sa kanilang bansa, pumunta ngayon dito yung mga Spaniards na nakatira sa mga bansang ito. Saan sila pumunta? Sa Pilipinas. Okay, pagdating nila sa Philippines, they immediately occupy certain positions. Bakit ang bilis nilang naka-occupy ng mga positions? Because they were either relatives of prodigies, of civil officials, and friars. So may mga kapit po sila, yung kanilang mga relatives ay may malaki pong position here in our country during those times. So dahil wala silang masyadong background, so if we are going to describe yung mga taong from Guatemala, Chile, Argentina, Mexico na pumunta sa Pilipinas, if we are going to describe them, sila po yung mostly ignorant and profligate, meaning to say recklessly extravagant na mga tao. Okay, they conducted themselves with arrogance and superciliousness. Okay, ganun pa rin ang meaning nun, no? They show us arrogance as how they interact with the Filipinos at the time, simply because of their alien white skin and tall noses. So, syempre, because physically speaking, iba sila sa mga Filipinos, so ipinakita talaga nila that they are above. No, they are practicing the concept of ethnocentrism at this point. No, meaning to say, they are considering themselves as higher than the Filipinos, where in fact, dumating lang sila sa Pilipinas kasi wala na po silang pera nung nagkaroon ng kasarinlan ang mga bansang hawak ng Spain in Latin America. So, ganun po ang konsepto nila. Pero nung dumating sila dito sa Pilipinas, ang taas po ng tingin nila sa kanilang mga sarili. Ganun po ang konsepto. They became rich by illegal means or by marrying the heiresses of rich Filipino families. So, ganun po. So, from a penniless situation, walang pera, very poor, nung pumunta sa Pilipinas, okay, ilang buwan lang ang nakalipas or couple of years, naging mayaman po ang mga taong ito because either by marrying the heiresses of those prominent families in the Philippines or iba't iba pong mga transactions ang kanilang ginawa. Syempre, because we are being colonized by the country Spain, so they could still impose everything what they want to impose kasi nga kontrolado tayo ng mga Spaniards during those times. So, ganun po ang konsepto. So, number 3 na pag-uusapan natin is ang konsepto ng no Philippine representation in Spanish Cortes. So, accordingly, the Philippines experienced her first period of representation in the Cortes from 1810 to 1813. So nagkaroon po no ng experience ang mga Filipinos na maging part dito sa tinatawag nating Spanish Cortes. History demonstrates that the first Philippine delegate in the person of Ventura de los Reyes, okay, took active part in the framing of the Constitution of 1812. So meaning to say, nung nag-frame ng Constitution 1812, kasali po dito ang mga Filipinos, okay? Particularly in the person of Ventura de los Reyes. Spain's first democratic constitution and was one of its 184 signers. So naging part po si Ventura noon sa 184 signers ng first constitution in 1812 ng mga Spaniards. So naging part po ang Philippines. Unfortunately, the representation of the overseas colonies including the Philippines, 'di ba sabi ko sa inyo kanina, meron silang sa Asia, Latin America and other parts, okay? So nung nagkaroon po ng abolition, okay, yung mga overseas na mga colonies in the representation of the Spanish Cortes last 1837, kasali po doon ang Philippines na hindi na inalaw na mag-represent sa Spanish Cortes. Okay, so na-abolish po tayo 1837 going back. Since then, Philippine condition worsened. Okay, so nagkaroon ng samot-saring problem ang bansang Pilipinas. Bakit nga ba? Because there was no means by which the Filipino people could expose the anomalies perpetrated by the colonial officials. Kasi nga hindi na tayo part sa Spanish Cortes, meaning to say wala na tayong karapatang idulog ang ating mga gusto, mga suggestions, recommendations, and any other problems that we observe from that particular moment, 19th century to we are talking, wala nang opportunity ang mga Filipinos na sabihin ito. Okay, kasi hindi na sila part. So nagkaroon ng samot-saring problema. So no wonder, Jose Rizal, Marcelo H. Del Pilar, Graciano Lopez Haina, and other youthful patriots launched the propaganda movement, okay, which paved the way for the Philippine Revolution of 1896. So ganun po ang konsepto. Okay, number 4 na pag-uusapan natin is the human rights denied to Filipinos. Okay, since the adoption of the Spanish Constitution of 1812, yung na-mention kanina, and other constitutions in succeeding years, the people of Spain enjoyed freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of association, and other human rights except freedom of religion. So kung ano yung nakastate sa ating 1987 Constitution, okay, sa Article 3 Bill of Rights natin, yun pa rin ang naka-reflect na ini-enjoy ng mga Spaniards or as far as the implementation of the Spanish colonization in the country. So meron siyang resemblance doon sa ating Constitution of 1987 at saka sa Constitution of 1812. Kasi nakalagay dito, enjoyed freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of the association. Okay, so meron na pong human rights. Strangely enough, the Spanish authorities that cherish these human rights or constitutional liberties in Spain denied them to the Filipinos in Asia. So ano ang naging problema sa human rights denied to Filipinos? Meaning to say, yung mga na-mention kong mga rights kanina, okay, sa inyo, hindi po yan inalaw na ma-experience ng mga Filipinos. Kaya nang-highlight nga dito, Spain denied them, okay, to the Filipinos in Asia. Hindi po tayo nabigyan ng ganong mga karapatan, okay, as far as the Constitution of 1812 is concerned. Such inconsistency was lamented by Sinibaldo de Mas, Spanish economist and diplomat, who wrote in 1843. Sabi niya, "Why do we fall into an anomaly such as combining our claim for liberty for ourselves and our wish to impose our law on remote peoples? Why do we deny to others the benefits which we desire for our fatherland?" Okay? Kasi nga, nagkaroon ng implementation ng mga rights na yun. Yung mga human rights na na-mention ko, nagkaroon ng implementation sa Spain. Pero bakit ang implementation na yan was denied in the Philippines. Yun ang question, okay, ni Sinibaldo Dimas sa kanyang mga sinulat, okay? So yun po ang naging konsepto, okay? Yun po ang isa sa mga evidences na makukonsider natin na nagkaroon ng pag-deny talaga, no, ng human rights ng mga Filipinos during the 19th century. So let's proceed now to number 5, which is no equality before the law. Okay, the Spanish missionaries who introduced Christianity into the Philippines as early as in the 16th century thought that all men, okay, irrespective of color and race, are children of God, and as such, they are brothers equal before God. Highlight natin kasi yun ang pinaka-importante. Thought that all men, irrespective of color and race, okay, so hindi natin tinitingnan ang color at saka race, are children of God. So lahat po ay children of God according to the teachings of Christianity na inintroduce po sa atin ng mga Espanyol. And as such, they are brothers equal before God. Ito yung presentation ng mga Spaniards when they came here. Remember the 3G nung sinabi ko sa inyo, the God, gold, and glory? Okay, na dinala po nila dito sa ating bansa. In practice, however, the Spanish colonial authorities who were Christians did not implement Christ's precept of the brotherhood of all men under the fatherhood of God. Okay, yun ang presentation nila, pero as to the practice, hindi po na-apply kung ano po ang mga doctrine ng sibahang yan or ng religion na yan. Maganda ang religion, maganda ang doctrine ng religion, maganda ang sinabi ng doctrine ng religion, but as to how it was implemented, iba. Okay, sa doktrinang ipinesent nila sa mga Filipinos. To their imperialist way of thinking, ito po, brown Filipinos and white Spaniards, in comparison with the two groups who are present at a time here in the country, the brown Filipinos and the white Spaniards may be equal before God. Ang konseptong ito ha, may be equal before God, but not before the law, and certainly not in practice. So meaning to say, according to the claim of the Spaniards, oo, equal tayo in the eyes of God, but not in the eyes of the law and how it should be done in the country. So sinagutan naman nila yung claim kasi nga nagkaroon na ng question, bakit hindi ito ang implementation ninyo based on the doctrine of that particular religion na inintroduce nyo sa amin. So yun ang justification ng mga Spaniards. In the eyes of God, we are equal, but in the eyes of the law and the practice in the country, hindi po tayo equal. So ganun po ang justification ng mga Spaniards. Consequently, the Filipinos were abused, brutalized, persecuted, and slandered by their Spanish masters. Ito po ang reality before. They could not appeal to the law for justice because the law being dispensed by the Spaniards was only for the white Spaniards. So walang protection na gaganap. There's no due process of law in any circumstances kasi ang batas na binuo, ang batas na promulgate ng mga tao is only for the white Spaniards and no longer protection to be given to the brown Filipinos as how they considered. So ganun po ang naging situation. So that is the reason why nagkaroon ng samot-saring abuses, no? They brutalized, persecuted, and slandered, no, the existence of the Filipinos during those particular time. As Professor Ferdinand Blumentritt wrote to Dr. Jose Rizal in 1887, ito ang sabi niya, the provision of the penal code that a heavier penalty will be imposed on the Indio or Mestizo irritates me exceedingly, sabi ni Blumentritt, because it signifies that every person not born white is in fact a latent criminal. So yun po, highlight ito yung statement ni Blumentritt ha. As far as the implementation of the Spaniards is concerned way back 19th century, sabi niya sa kanyang statement, because it signifies that every person not born white is in fact a latent criminal. Because of your color, because of your race, okay, automatically you will be considered as criminal according to the constitution that was framed by the Spaniards. So ganun po ang nangyayari or ang situation noong 19th century in the country. This is a very great injustice, sabi ni Blumentritt, that seems enormous and unjust for being embodied in law. Na yun ang nag-prevail during those times at yun ang na-apply here in our country. So let's proceed now to number 6, which is the maladministration of justice. Okay, the courts of justice in the Philippines during Rizal's time were notoriously corrupt, meaning to say known as corrupt talaga ang courts of justice panahon po ng 19th century. Verily, they were courts of injustice, quote-unquote, yun ang pinaka-highlight, as far as the brown Filipinos were concerned. The Spanish judges, fiscals, prosecuting attorneys, and other court officials were inept, okay, or no skill. Wala silang alam sa batas. Venal, so sinabi ko sa venal kanina, prone to bribery, and oftentimes ignorant of the law, but they occupied positions in the government. Why? Because controlled nila ang lahat ng mga nangyayari sa Pilipinas. Controlled po nila ang political system ng Pilipinas at the time. So lahat ng mag-occupy ng mga positions na yan, ang nabanggit ko, ay mga Spaniards po talaga. So ganun po ang naging situation. Okay, justice was costly here sa Philippines, partial and slow. So yung pinakasikat nating maxim that even before na-apply siya, yung konsepto ng justice delayed, justice denied. So ang konseptong iyan ay present na po during the 19th century kasi nakastate po talaga dito, justice was costly, partial and slow. Napaka-expensive po niya tapos napakabagal po ng proceedings. Poor Filipinos had no access to the courts because they could not afford the heavy expenses of litigation. Okay? Napaka-expensive po ng pag-process or pag-file ng isang case. Wealth, social prestige, and color of skin were preponderant, or meaning to say, nag-prevail at the time, factors in winning a case in court. So kagaya po ng nangyayari sa ating bansa ngayon, ang mayayaman po ang usually ang pinapanigan ng Korte Suprema. That is reality. So nangyayari pa rin po yan noong unang panahon, talking about the 19th century. So ang mayayaman, yung mga influential na family, yung may pangalan, sila po usually ang nananalo sa isang kaso or pinapanigan ng Korte Suprema. Irrespective of the weight of the evidence, nakalagay dito, irrespective of the weight of evidence, a rich man or a Spaniard whose skin was white, okay, easily achieved victory in any litigation. So, whose skin was white, usually sila po ang nananalo sa isang kaso. So, ganun po ang reality. To the Filipino masses, a litigation in court was a calamity. The expenses incurred even in a simple lawsuit often exceeded the value of the property at issue. So meaning to say, napaka-expensive po ng mag-file ng isang kaso during those times. So that in many instances, the litigants, okay, yung nag-file ng case, found themselves impoverished at the end of the long tussle. Like for example, you are a native elite or a mayamang pamilya dito sa Pilipinas, okay, pure Filipino ka pero mayaman kayo, and then nagkaroon ka ng conflict with a pure Spaniard. Okay, because napaka-expensive ng pag-file ng isang kaso hanggang sa dumating ang time, kasi pinapatagal po nila yung case, hanggang sa dumating ang time na maubos po ang wealth mo in filing a case. Pero wala pa rin pong progress, okay? Because at the end of the day, naka-justify na po actually yan sa concept ng mga Spaniards na ang dapat manalo ay ang mga Spaniards in a certain case, okay? Criminal cases dragged on for many years, during which period either the delinquents took the flight, okay, or the documents were lost. Because immediately, that particular Spaniard could immediately travel going back to the Iberian Peninsula, talking back, we're talking now the state of Spain in Europe. Okay? So, pwede siyang immediately mag-travel doon kung meron siyang hinaharap na kaso dito sa Pilipinas. Or pwede rin na ipalabas ng mga Spaniards na nawala ang documents, especially when you submitted already your evidences. So, it could happen na nawala, no, ipapalabas ng mga Spaniards na nawala po yung dokumento mo. So definitely ganun po kahirap ang situation na nararanasan ng ating mga kapwa Filipino during the 19th century. So again, balikan po natin ang diniscuss natin sa umagang ito ay tungkol sa instability of colonial administration. Second one is corrupt colonial officials. The third one is no Philippine representation in the Spanish Cortes. Number 4, we have the human rights denied to Filipinos. Number 5, we have no equality before the law. And number 6, we have maladministration of justice. So abangan niyo po bukas ang continuation ng discussion na ito, the part of our discussion sa 11 social evils, at bukas po i-justify ko po sa inyo ang mga connections ng mga bagay na ito sa ating present happenings here in our country. So that will be all for this morning. I hope you learned something from this video, and I hope that you will share this video to your friends and to anybody else that you think na ngailangan ng video na ito. Asahan niyo po that sa Job TV will continue to discuss more meaningful discussions, especially in the world of social sciences. Thank you once again for watching. Bye-bye!